I'm making this video in response to the YouTube Live and the 60-second video regarding racism that Harid Iskander hosted on his platforms. Before moving on, this is a disclaimer that there is no sentiment of hatred or anger toward Harid Iskander, and that this is purely a response kindled from the standpoint of a listener from a minority group in Malaysia. First of all, I'd like to thank Harid Iskander for providing the platform for discussion of a topic that hits close to home for a lot of us in this country. But here is what I have to say. There are two fundamental forms of racism: individual racism and systemic racism. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the issues primarily addressed in Harid Iskander's videos were those of individual racism, which is the form of racial discrimination that stems from conscious and unconscious personal prejudice, such as telling a racist joke, the belief of an inherently superior race, the idea that a particular race is weaker or derogatory, or, and this is the most important one, the belief that racial inequality is not a problem. While it was refreshing to hear a person of influence bring attention to these matters, I'm afraid that there was little emphasis to the most serious matter at hand: systemic racism, which is the discrimination that is embedded into the policies and practices entrenched in the established institutions of our country, that result in the exclusion of designated groups or the minority group, as well as the continued unfair advantage to some groups based on race. This form of racism manifests itself in all of society's facets, such as economy, politics, and education, which was the issue being discussed in the 60-second response video made by Harid Iskander. The example being of a non-Malay person not being presented with equal opportunity to be accepted into a university, despite having equal or even better grades than those of a Malay person. His response in the video talked about how, if you are a person who has been through such an injustice, that you will grow to become stronger than a person who hasn't. Now, this is a statement that I agree with, but not one that I feel is an appropriate response to the matter at hand. The problem is not that we are trying to prove ourselves to become stronger than the other. The problem is that no matter how hard we work, how strong we are, and how strong we become, the system will never allow us to attain the opportunities that we deserve, and more importantly, the opportunities that the Malay community has in this country. This is the boldest example of systemic racism in our country, but it certainly does not stop there. To the people in the comments saying that the videos circulating regarding racism are unnecessary, and that they do not depict the reality of this country, and that we are making a bigger deal out of something trivial, you are wrong. The fact is that racism exists in this country not only in the form of individual prejudice, but also in the very constitution that makes this country. And the fact that there are more videos talking about it now does not mean that people are getting easily triggered or that the situation is only worsening now. It has been in this country for more than 60 years. It's just that the minority group has grown more courageous to talk about it now. Racism is not getting worse, it's getting filmed. Therefore, while we appreciate the motivation that Harid Iskander is trying to provide, it certainly does not belong in a video that talks about the unfair disadvantage presented to a non-Malay in Malaysia. Quoting Harid Iskander, "Struggling a little harder does make you a stronger person, but the point is that a non-Malay person shouldn't have to struggle harder than a Malay person to get the same opportunity. We expect you to address the systemic racism in this country, not to accept the reality that life is tough, because it is irrelevant in this context. Yes, life is tough, but it is tougher for a non-Malay living in Malaysia." Thank you.